Hi friends, today I invite you to come join me in my warm and cozy kitchen as we unlock the wonder of coffee dyeing. With just a few simple ingredients, we can infuse vintage character into paper right in our ovens. I'm Ingrid Carlsen and this is Caratootie, and if you are wondering how to create these beautiful hues on your pages, then stay tuned. If you've never coffee dyed before, it's very easy. You're just going to use an instant coffee. And then I boiled some water in there and added the coffee just to the color that I wanted it. Then I also added some cinnamon and then some vanilla for smell. What I'm going to do is take these pans and I'm going to take the pan, and this one's for soaking, and then I have another one sitting here that's going to be for drying. Now you have a couple different options. For me today it's cloudy and rainy, and so I cannot dry outside, which is my preferred method, just to sit it out in the grass. So sometimes I will dry it in the oven. I do a very low heat and I leave them all stacked up. I'll show you that once we get through them, and then I just keep an eye on it. I do not move because you do not want these causing any kind of flames or anything. So I take, this is some deli paper. You could use the wax paper, and I'm just going to start putting it here and laying them on top of each other. This is some watercolor paper pad. And depending on how dark you want your color is how much coffee you're going to put in there. Also, you're going to be very careful because, as you can see here, when the paper is wet, the fibers are very delicate and they can break. And sometimes I'll leave it like this so it gets some like creases. The other thing I like to do is once I'm done, I'll take an iron and kind of iron out the pieces. Another thing you can do when you are putting your papers in there, and I'm going to add some coffee. So you can see the strength is very light. I wanted more of kind of a tea stain look, which you could also do the same method with tea. Now on this part, I can take some of my grounds, and you can be as liberal or as little. And I'm just gonna sprinkle a few of them. And I'm gonna leave them like that. I have some note cards. I've got my envelopes. And you can see here where that coffee has now disintegrated in the water, and it's gonna leave some like beautiful marks on your paper. I'm also experimenting adding some cinnamon on top of these envelopes. I'll probably dip it down, but look at that yummy texture already. And I wanna make sure that it's wet. I'm just making sure that all of the little crystals are wet and not dry. Ooh, this one's gonna be nice. And I'm just stacking them on here. As you can see, this is all my drying stuff, and then I've sprinkled some coffee, and I'm just taking my hand in the coffee mixture and just kind of just dissolving the crystals. That's going to be so beautiful and mimic foxing. I also had laid out a piece of wax paper to kind of protect my surface that I was working on, so that is not going to go to waste. I'm going to take it and just stick it on top here. And remember, there was coffee down here, so see, it's going to go ahead and pick that up. And now I'm going to go ahead and toss it into the oven. Here are my papers after 10 minutes at 300 degrees, and you can see here There is some drying going on. Like this is completely dry, but you can definitely see there's still a lot of moisture. So I'm going to take the pulling liquid. So I'm gonna tilt it and you're gonna see there's some liquid there. I'm gonna pour it back into my pot that I left out, and then I'm going to run it again for another 10 minutes, and I'm going to keep checking them. As they get drier, I will cut down on the time, so I might check them every 5, every 3, every 2, 1, etc. We are at the 20-minute mark, and I can tell you that the majority of this deli paper is dry with the exception of that pulling. So I'm going to stick it over to the side. This paper is all still pretty moist. I did put a lot in here. The less amount of paper that you put in here, the quicker it's gonna dry. So I'm gonna stick it in for probably, I think another 10 because it's pretty wet. And be careful, it's hot. You guys know I burn my fingers all the time. So 10 more minutes and we'll see. I also noticed that this was kind of really dark and it was sticking to the pot. So what I'm going to do is just really carefully using a spatula, not my hands, and yeah, I can see right here. And you're going to notice that on the edges, it is going to sometimes burn a little bit. So I'm going to flip this all over to the other side. Here it is from the back side, so it is definitely a lot darker. I'm not really sure why that happened. Usually I haven't had that happen before, but you can see here it's not. So actually I think I'm going to make a decision to pull these out and put them to the side and then bake these separate so that because I really wanted my papers to be a little lighter. So I'm going to pull this, that way it won't go down into the rest of the papers. This is another 10 minutes later. It's definitely getting more dry, but it's still pretty wet. So I did do a lot because I figured go ahead and get it done. I think next time I would batch it and do just a few pieces at a time if I'm going to be sitting here anyways. But I'm just pulling off each page one at a time so that I can kind of loosen them, and then I'll be able to dry them. And you just want to still be very careful. I think this is the watercolor paper. It's funny, it feels like leather. I've gotten down to the copy paper and I wanted to show you guys how nice this is looking, and it looks like foxing on it. This is definitely not a one-way only project. It's kind of like watercolor where you don't know what's going to happen. Oh, that's stuck on the bottom. There you go. You don't know what colors, like I did not expect that, but I do like that around the edges. Here is my update. I ended up having to dry them in small batches. Some of these, like these, I just left out for the rest of the day and they are almost completely dry. Those were the dark ones that I took out. So I would definitely suggest, if you are doing this, to do it in small batches. Do not do what I did. Don't stick the whole thing in there. Do small batches, because either way, I was still in the kitchen for forever trying to dry it. Also, make sure you do not leave the kitchen at any time. Don't leave it unattended. And then the next thing is, for like the dark marks, I think that's because I added the coffee in, like you guys saw me sprinkling it. So I was thinking it was going to come out more browns, and it came out like, something like this. But it came out dark. So now I'm going to go through with my iron and making sure I have everything protected. I'm just using an old towel that I have, and I'm going to iron it so that it's flat. If you don't like it to be flat and you don't care, you like all like this crinkle, then by all means leave it. All right, let's get started. And I'm just using a piece of deli paper just to protect my iron, and that is pretty straight or pretty flat for me, so I'm good with that. I think that envelope glued together, which is funny. Oh, it did not. Oh, that's good. And I don't mind some of these little ridges. I just want it to be mainly flat. Okay, I'm gonna get through this pile and I'll come back and show you the results. So here is my stack, and as you can see, they are pretty flat now. And what did end up happening though are on my window envelopes, the shrink wrap or whatever the glassine shrunk in the oven. I thought it was because this one, I started doing it and I thought it was because of the iron, but I think it was the oven. So you don't want to stick those in the oven if you want them to be okay. I'll still use these pieces, but I just want. Here are all the pieces that I've coffee dyed. You're going to want to have at least 4 of the small envelopes if you want to do it exactly like me. You can also do if you only have the bigger size, we're actually cutting them down to even a smaller size. So this is the original. And I just had on hand some window envelopes, some of the large envelopes, some small envelopes, and I did like a stack of them. I have some pattern paper from one of my printables. I think this is mixed media paper, some lined paper. I think this is like gridded paper. This is the drawing paper or newsprint. The deli paper. These are more envelopes. This is a really fun pad that I have, and it's kind of lined as well as has these boxes. I think it's for taking notes. I'm not 100% sure. This is the watercolor paper. This is deli paper. This feels like maybe copy. Some book pages. This is watercolor paper. And these are all book pages. No, copy paper and then book pages. And you're going to see some of my envelopes, because I left them in the water for so long, this is obviously not part of this one, but it's somewhere in here. They came apart, but I'm keeping all of the pieces. Like I even have this. I'm going to keep them all because you can always use them. And some more envelopes. I had some unlined note cards in there. Oh, and you can see here where it ghosted the printable that I had, the polka dots. think that's really cool. And that's about it. So you do not have to do this much for our project, but I'm an all or nothing type of person. And I figured since I was in the kitchen anyways, even though I was in there all day, so definitely listen to my tips with, actually, I'll give a quick rundown of what I think. I think that when you're coffee dyeing, it's better to work in small batches. You add the papers, soak them for however long you want. So if you just want a light color, you just dip them in and dip them out. You try to take the excess moisture out of your pan. And this is all if you're doing it inside. Take the excess moisture out of your pan before putting it in the oven. I also think that with the oven, you do smaller batches. Usually about 5 minutes is all it took when I did like 3 or 4 pages at a time. And that was way better than trying to do the whole thing. Let's see what else. My oven was set to about 300 degrees. I would probably, if you want it to be light, I don't know that I would add like the cinnamon and the coffee on top of it, because I think that's what gave me like these dark edges. But what I would do is I would make a little concentrate of the coffee and then like maybe splatter it on. So I think that's what I would do next time to keep because I wanted the papers to be more light, but I do love the way they came out. And I think in the end, they'll all work. I mean, it just looks so vintage and grungy. So now you've taken papers that were just normal papers that look like that's not part of a junk journal per se, and now you've created them to look like these are papers that you just found in a chest up in an attic that you just opened up, and they're just beautiful and weathered and old and tattered and perfect for a journal. So just make sure that you have a handful of envelopes and that you have some pages to put inside of the or to make little signatures. I would say probably about 4 or 5 pages. So really you could do this all in one batch. You could be done within, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. So thank you for joining me. I am so happy to have you here. I hope that you're enjoying the series so far. This was part 2. Part 3, we're going to start building the envelope base of our journal, and I can't wait to get started. Thank you so much for all of your likes and your comments. And even if I have not, I'm so far behind on comments right now, but I promise you that I will get to them as soon as I can. I've been just trying to keep up with the videos, and so then I've let go of the comments. But I see notifications come up, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. So thank you so much. Thank you for spending the afternoon or morning with me, or evening. And again, a big thank you to all my patrons, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.